I'll share with you thoughts about this scripture. About hard words. So many weeks Jonathan does this. Jonathan is on a cold weather camp out. He was hoping to earn his polar bear badge. He has a polar bear patch from Texas, but to get that, all you have to do is camp out when it's under 40 degrees. Here you have to camp out when it's under, I think it's under 12 degrees. So it's too warm last night, so this doesn't even count. But he's pretty sure that's the reason we moved to Colorado, so that he could camp out. Philip has told us about where the scripture is going, and I'm just calling the first service Living Ready. Matthew, show us that next time. Hit the space bar. No, it does not. There you go. So go over here. Slideshow. Let's see that as a show. Sure enough, no. Okay. Well, let me just read you. One of the things about this technology is that if I drop it from chest height, you know what? I can pick it up and it reboots just instantly. So attend to the better word of Jesus. Matthew 25, verses 1 through 13. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, 5 of them were wise. There we go. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. But the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a shout, "Look, here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all those bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise replied, "No, for there will not be enough for you and for us. You better go to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." And when they went to buy it, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the other bridesmaids came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he replied, "Truly, truly, I do not know you. Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." The word of God for the people of God. Yes, we go. We have a number of people in this room who are fellow refugees from Texas, and so they will recognize a phrase that I will use. It may be across the whole South, I don't know, you can answer that. There is a term in Texas, it's 3 syllables, fixin' to. And I am trying to iron that out of my vocabulary because I see some of you native Coloradans do a little double take when it comes out of my mouth. And see, it is a kind of a southern, kind of a Texan way of paving over an unpleasant truth. See, there's all the difference in the world between getting ready and fixing to get ready. We have this in my house. So, Mom says, "We're leaving in 45 minutes. Everybody, you understand that? Yes, we understand that. And then at 43 minutes, Mom says, "Let's get in the car." It's, ooh, I gotta get my shoes on. Well, that's what we were talking about 45 minutes ago. Well, yeah, but now it's time. So there's fixing to get ready. And the bridesmaids in this story, the foolish ones, the sin that they're committing is simply the foolishness of fixing to. Fixing to get ready is not the same thing as getting ready. And what Christ is calling us to is not just to get ready, but to live ready. And there is all the difference in the world between getting ready for his return and living ready for his return. You must be ready. Jesus says it here, and probably a third of all the parables in the Gospels are at some point about being prepared. So a king has 3 stewards, and he gives each of them a different number of bags of gold, and then he returns. It's always without warning when the boss comes back. You know, you may have worked someplace. I've spent some time in the corporate world, and one of the big VPs is going to be gone, and everybody knows it. The VP is gone sometimes on a Friday, and people start drifting off and punching out a little bit early, maybe 3 o'clock on a Friday, because the guy's already left for the day. And then he's away on a trip, and we don't know when he'll be back from opening the new office. And boy, after about 6 weeks, some people quit even showing up. I don't know if you've had that experience. I had that experience. Alicia and I owned a house, and actually sold it just before the housing debacle in 2008. And could not, we had roof damage, and the check from the insurance had to be signed by the homeowner, which was this mortgage company. And the guy was never in the office in Midland, Texas. I looked on the website, found the phone number, and called it. And it was at the stroke of 6 p.m. in California, I guess, because the president of the mortgage company in California answered, his secretary answered the phone. And she said, and I said, nobody's been able to sign this check for weeks, and I can't get my roof fixed. It may hail again before I get this check signed. And she said, I'll get somebody signed for you in the morning. And when I drove over, it was about a 30-mile drive from Odessa to Midland. When I got there, every employee was waiting at the front door for me to show up, and there was a vice president who was ready to sign that check. I got the feeling that the workers were not expecting that morning, but they fixed it and got ready pretty quick. But you know, the thing about this story is that getting ready spiritually, nobody can do it for you. You've got to do it by yourself. You've got to do it for yourself. See these, the foolish girls in this story, they asked the wise girls to share their oil, and they're not ready to. It sounds hard-hearted, but the truth is, when it comes to being spiritually ready, nobody can do that but you. So we have a number of ordained ministers involved in the church, and all of them can tell you stories about performing weddings. And you do a great big church wedding or a wedding in somebody's backyard, and then sometime in the next year, here comes the bride or the groom or both of them, profoundly unhappy. She worked so hard to get the right dress. He worked so hard to get the right weekend in Cabo San Lucas for their honeymoon. They worked so hard to get the right flowers and the right cake. They got the right pictures. They got the right wedding. They didn't plan the marriage. They thought planning wedding photos was the same thing as planning their marriage, and it's not. And they can't hear a pastor or a counselor telling them that. They have to discover it for themselves. And we pray to God that they discover it sometime in those 6 sessions before they get married, rather than in a session 8 months or 10 months out, and realize that they got some great pictures in the room, but that's not the same thing as fixing their marriage, putting their marriage on a holy and mutual beginning foundation. Nobody can do it for you. So there's the story. You've lived out variations of it. The guy's going to take his wife to the big ball. He's got to get her. Yes, honey, I'll get your dress cleaned. I'll get your dress to the dry cleaners. Driving around on a Friday afternoon. Isn't there a 1-hour cleaner around here someplace? Driving around and finds the 1-hour cleaners. Here you go. It'll be how much? Oh my goodness. Well, here, let me give you my card. I'm going to run some errands. I'll be back here in about an hour and 20 minutes. And the woman behind the counter says, I'll have it for you Thursday. Wait a minute, isn't this place called 1-Hour Cleaners? Yeah, that's just the name, though. We don't really do that. Nobody does that anymore. See, the problem is that there are people who look like bridesmaids. Their dress may match. It could even be you. Your dress may match the other bridesmaids, but that doesn't make you a bridesmaid. Right? There are some churches who've got the right symbol out front, they got the right sign out front, but that doesn't make them churches. We want to be we want to watch who we are as a church. That not just that we got the right dress on, but we're really being the bridesmaid. We're really being the bride of Christ. You can have the label of Christian and wear it for all the world to see, but just because you match the people in the pews next to you does not mean that you are ready. Just because your neighbors are ready doesn't mean you are ready. No one else can do that part of it for you. You've got to do that for yourself. Just like Jesus walked that Lonesome Valley, he had to walk it all by himself. There's a valley you've got to walk to. No one can walk it for you. Jesus will walk it with you. In this story, did you notice that everyone falls asleep? The good girls, the smart girls, they fall asleep too. The church has been waiting for 20 centuries for Jesus to get back. And our regular life goes on. And that's okay. The wise ones, the ones who are ready, they can sleep too. They can take a little nap. We can focus on our work. We can focus on building our families. We can focus on cheering for our favorite sports franchise. And that's all fine, and it's all good. But some people can get a good night's sleep because they know they're ready. They know they are prepared. They're not with the rest of the folks who are going to jump up and say, "Oh, is it already time? Well, I'm fixing to get ready." But living ready. That way, they're always ready. There is a day coming. We don't like to say it these days. But there is a day coming. And you know what that day is called? That day is called too late. There is a day when it will be too late. There is a time when it will be too late. We can always slow things down a little bit to make sure somebody gets their shoes on or finds their homework or loads their instrument into the car. But there is a day coming, friends, when it will be too late. Look at that last line. It stands out in the story because Jesus is the master storyteller. He's the master of all things. He's also the master storyteller. But look what Jesus ends with. Later, the other bridesmaids came also and said, "Lord, open to us." So you hear them knocking, but they can't come in. They're knocking on the door. "Lord, open to us." And what does he say? Right there, it should be verse 12. They say, "Lord, open to us." But he replied, "Truly, I tell you, I do not know you." Now, there's a sermon series waiting in verse 12 that the groom would say, "I do not know you." Not just y'all are too late, and there's a day called too late. I don't even know you. I served a little country church that had been there forever, and they still had a wood-burning stove. And part of the student minister's job, it was up in Pilot Point, Texas, the student minister's job was to fire up the wood stove before church. And it's like, well, how much wood do I need to put in the wood stove? Well, preacher, how long are you going to go? But chase the wasps out in the summer, open all the windows so the wasps would come out of the high ceiling, and then in the winter, fire up the wood stove. There was a business card from some minister. I didn't even have the preacher's name on it, but there was a church business card from Central Christian Church of Pilot Point. I've got it someplace. I've got it in a sleeve like it was a collector's baseball card. It's got a picture of a hearse on it, and a picture of the church. And it says, "Whenever I pass the Lord's house, I always stop in for a visit. In case when my time comes, the Lord looks in and says, 'Who is it?'" I don't want to be a stranger to God. I don't want to have the groom say, "I do not know you." I don't want to be the one for whom the guy who authored the feast, the one who called and arranged and got the flowers right and got the vacation right and got the cake right, says, "You, I'm not so sure." There is a day coming, and that day is called too late. You may not agree with me about that, but I'm fully convinced. When everything else that I see in the world and all the ways that I see God's love, I see that God is also just. And justice cuts both ways. But there is a day coming when it will be too late. So what is the answer? The answer is to get ready. Not fixing to get ready, but to really get ready and then live ready. We all fall asleep. We all need a nap. We all need to take a vacation. Sometimes people need to sleep in from church. That's all true. It's all true. But it's also true that you need to live ready. No one can do it for